Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to another week of online learning. I hope you're keeping up with your work. I hope you're staying healthy. I hope you're enjoying your time with your family. I'm here to read the next two chapters of the book that we've been working through, The Adventures of Sophie Mouse, A New Friend. Today we're going to pick up with chapters 5 and 6. Last time, the chapters 3 and 4 were about the new boy at school, the new snake at school, I should say, Owen. And everybody was nervous around him, and Sophie and her friend Hattie were nervous to ask him to join them at recess. And at the end of chapter 4, where we left off, Owen was talking to his mom. Sophie saw Owen talking to his mom, and she imagined that she was asking him about how his first day of school went, and Owen did not look very happy. So we're going to see how things continue with Sophie and her new friend Owen, hopefully, right? So we're going to pick up with chapter 5, Snake Stories. At dinner that night, Winston told Mr. and Mrs. Mouse about the new student. "Wow, a snake for a classmate," Mrs. Mouse exclaimed. Sophie nodded. "Malcolm said that snakes can be sneaky," she began. "And Ben said they're scary," Winston added. "And quick-tempered," said Sophie. "At least that's what Piper told us." Mrs. Mouse seemed surprised at their words as she passed the cheese biscuits. "Actually," she said calmly, "I was going to say, a snake for a classmate? How delightful." "Delightful?" Sophie and Winston cried in surprise. Mr. Mouse nodded. "Have you or any of your friends ever met a snake before?" he asked. Sophie and Winston shook their heads. Mr. Mouse smiled. "Well, I have," he said. "Your mother and I used to know a very nice snake." "Yes," agreed Mrs. Mouse, "and I thought you two knew better than to make up your mind before you even get to know someone." All of a sudden, Sophie's biscuit didn't taste so good. She thought again about Owen sitting alone at recess and how sad he looked after school. Now she really wished she had asked Owen to play. Later that evening, Sophie went to find her dad. George Mouse was at his design desk working on a blueprint for a Shrew family's new house. "Dad," Sophie said, "would you tell me more about the snake you and Mom knew?" Mr. Mouse put down his pencil. He turned to look at Sophie, smiled, and ruffled the fur on her head. "Her name was Olivia," he began. "Her family lived near here when your mom and I were young. We'd play together all the time, especially over in the buttercup patch. Then one day, when I was maybe 10, she and her family moved away. I missed her a lot. Your mom did too." Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Sounds like she was a very good friend of yours." Mr. Mouse nodded. "She was a very good friend," he said. Sophie shuffled to her room. She got into her pajamas, climbed into bed, pulled up her quilt made of milkweed fluff, and turned off the light. As she lay in the dark, Sophie made a decision. Owen was brave enough to walk into a school full of strangers, she thought. Tomorrow I can be brave enough to ask him to play. Chapter 6. Time flies when you're having fun. At school the next day, the first thing Sophie did was look for Owen, but he wasn't there. The students took their seats. Mrs. Wise called attendance. They started their lesson. Still no Owen. Sophie looked back at the door many times during the day. At every rustle or creak or whoosh of the wind, she turned to see if Owen was arriving. But the day flew by and Owen never appeared. The same thing happened the next day. Everyone was in school except for Owen. Where was he? At least it was library day. Oh, that's exciting. Which took Sophie's mind off of it. She loved library day. "Each of you may check out one book this morning," Mrs. Wise told the students. The following day, the class went on a field trip to the beautiful Gold Moss Pond. Sophie was so excited that she didn't even notice Owen was missing. Before Sophie knew it, the weekend had arrived. On Saturday afternoon, she and Hattie went to help out at the bakery. Mrs. Mouse had a brand new recipe to try out. She was known far and wide for her unusual and tasty creations. Today's experiment was a cinnamon-spiced buttercup cake. If it's not a 10 on the tasty scale, it's not ready to be sold, Mrs. Mouse told the girls with a wink. She emptied a basket onto the counter. 2 delicate buttercups fell out. "Oh dear," said Mrs. Mouse, "we're definitely going to need more buttercups." "We'll go pick some," Sophie suggested. Hattie nodded in agreement. The buttercup patch was very close to the bakery. Mrs. Mouse hesitated, then said, "Okay, but be back in a half an hour." Sophie and Hattie skipped out of the bakery with their baskets in hand. Okay, I'm going to put a bookmark here in Chapter 7. One Stuck Mouse is where we'll pick up next time. I wonder what happened to Owen. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe he decided he didn't want to go back to school or he was scared. So we'll figure it out next time. We'll see what happens in the next 2 chapters. But I hope you enjoyed today, chapters 5 and 6. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I hope that the Easter Bunny brings you lots of goodies in your basket. Bye, boys and girls. See you soon.